The first crack of the whip echoed through the ballroom. A young maid collapsed onto the marble floor, clutching her shoulder as hundreds of wealthy guests watched without saying a word. The bride smiled. "Maybe the next strike will teach you where you belong." She lifted the whip again. Then the grand doors burst open. A deep voice shook the entire room. "Touch her again, and the wedding is over." Every head turned. The billionaire had returned 6 hours early. No one noticed the faint smile on the maid's face, because she had been waiting for this exact moment. She wasn't there by accident. And before the night was over, someone in that ballroom would lose far more than a wedding. 24 hours earlier, the Hawthorne estate buzzed with excitement. Servants rushed through endless hallways carrying flowers, expensive china, and designer gowns. America's youngest billionaire, Ethan Hawthorne, was marrying socialite Victoria Langford, and every major news outlet wanted a glimpse of the wedding. Among the new staff was a quiet young woman wearing a plain blue maid's uniform. Her name tag read, Emily Brooks. She kept her head down, spoke politely, and blended in so well that hardly anyone noticed her. Exactly as she intended, the head housekeeper stopped in front of the servants. "Listen carefully," she said. "Miss Victoria expects perfection. If she gives you an order, you obey. If she insults you, you smile. If she blames you for something." She lowered her voice. "You apologize." Emily frowned. "But what if we didn't do anything wrong?" The room went silent. An older maid gently squeezed her hand. "You must be new." Another servant whispered, "Here. Being innocent doesn't protect you." Emily glanced around. No one looked surprised, only afraid. At that moment, high heels echoed across the marble floor. Victoria entered wearing a white silk robe worth more than most of the servants earned in a year. Without greeting anyone, she picked up a tray of crystal glasses. She studied it for a second, then deliberately pushed it onto the floor. Crash, glass shattered everywhere. Every servant flinched. Victoria slowly turned toward Emily. "You..." Emily looked up. "Clean this." Emily nodded and knelt to gather the broken pieces. As she reached for the last shard, Victoria quietly whispered so only she could hear, "Always hated new maids." Then Victoria pressed the sharp edge of a broken glass into her own palm. A thin line of blood appeared. She screamed, "This girl attacked me." The room froze. Every servant stared in disbelief. No one had seen Emily touch her, but no one dared speak. The estate manager came running. "What happened?" Victoria pointed at Emily. "She cut my hand." Emily immediately stood. "Didn't..." "Enough." The manager didn't even let her finish. "Apologized to Miss Langford." Emily looked around the room. Every face told her the same thing: stay quiet, so she lowered her head. "I'm sorry." Victoria smiled. "Good." Then she leaned close enough for only Emily to hear. "This is only the beginning." Before we find out why Victoria chose Emily as her target, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications if you enjoy emotional stories filled with shocking twists and unforgettable endings. Trust me, what happens next changes everything. Emily spent the rest of the afternoon cleaning in silence. But while everyone believed she was just another frightened maid, she was quietly watching, counting security cameras, memorizing keycard locks, noticing which doors remained guarded and which ones didn't. She wasn't at Hawthorne Estate because she needed a job. She had come for something else, something hidden. And before the wedding day ended, the truth would bring one of America's most powerful families to its knees. Emily had been inside Hawthorne Estate for less than 12 hours. Already, she had made an enemy. As the other servants cleaned the shattered glass, the elderly maid who had warned her earlier quietly approached. "My name is Margaret," she whispered. "You should leave while you still can." Emily looked up. "Is Victoria always like this?" Margaret glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "Worse." "Then why doesn't Mr. Hawthorne stop her?" Margaret sighed. "Because he doesn't see it. Spends most of his time running the company. When he's home, she becomes the perfect fiancée." Emily remained silent. That was exactly the answer she needed. Victoria wasn't simply cruel, she was careful. That evening, the servants prepared the West Wing for the arrival of important business guests. Emily carried fresh towels upstairs. As she passed Ethan's private office, she noticed something unusual. The office door was slightly open. Inside, a man in a black suit hurriedly placed a thick envelope into Ethan's desk drawer. He looked over his shoulder, locked the drawer, and quickly walked away. Emily waited until the hallway was empty. Something about the man's behavior didn't feel right. She stepped into the office. The drawer was locked. She pulled a tiny metal pin from inside her apron and carefully worked the lock. Click. The drawer opened. Inside was the envelope. Across the front, someone had written, "For ETHAN only." Emily hesitated. Then she opened it. Her eyes widened. The envelope contained financial records showing that millions of dollars had been disappearing from Hawthorne Global over the past year. The money hadn't vanished. It had been transferred through several fake companies. Someone inside Ethan's inner circle was stealing from him. Before she could read another page, footsteps. Emily quickly slipped the papers back into the envelope and closed the drawer just as voices approached. She hid behind a bookshelf. The office door opened. Victoria walked in. She wasn't alone. The same man in the black suit entered behind her. "Has he signed the merger agreement?" he asked. "Yet," Victoria replied. "He still wants to review the numbers." Man frowned. "If he finds those missing funds, everything falls apart." Victoria smirked. "He won't." The maid, Emily's heart skipped. Victoria's smile turned cold. "She's asking too many questions. Deal with her tomorrow." Emily held her breath. She had heard enough. The money wasn't missing by accident. Someone was planning something much bigger. But before she could slip out unnoticed, a floorboard creaked beneath her foot. The voices stopped. Victoria slowly turned toward the bookshelf. "Who's there? Who's there?" Victoria's voice cut through the office like a knife. Emily's heart pounded. She knew if she ran, she'd expose herself. Instead, she stepped out from behind the bookshelf, lowering her eyes like a frightened maid. "I'm sorry, ma'am." Victoria narrowed her eyes. "What are you doing in here?" "The head housekeeper asked me to dust the office." The lie came so naturally that even the man beside Victoria hesitated. Victoria took a slow step closer, then another, until she was standing inches from Emily. "You expect me to believe that?" Emily remained silent. Victoria suddenly smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found a new victim. "Well," she said, "since you're so eager to work, you can serve tonight's rehearsal dinner." Man in the black suit leaned toward Victoria and whispered, "Keep an eye on her." Victoria nodded almost invisibly. Emily noticed, so she wasn't imagining it. They really were watching her. That evening, Hawthorne Estate glittered with luxury. Crystal chandeliers lit the grand ballroom. Politicians, celebrities, and business executives filled the room, laughing over champagne. Emily quietly served drinks from table to table. As she passed one of the VIP guests, an elderly woman accidentally dropped her handbag. The contents spilled across the floor. Before anyone else reacted, Emily knelt and helped gather everything. The elderly woman smiled. "Thank you, dear." As Emily handed back the last item, the woman noticed a small silver pendant hanging from beneath Emily's uniform. Her smile faded. She stared at it for several seconds, then she whispered, "Where did you get that necklace?" Emily instinctively tucked it back under her collar. "It belonged to my father." Before the woman could reply, Victoria's voice rang through the ballroom. "There you are." Every conversation stopped. Victoria walked toward Emily carrying a glass of expensive red wine. Without warning, she poured the entire glass over Emily's uniform. The room gasped. Victoria shook her head dramatically. "You've ruined my evening." Emily looked down at her soaked uniform. "You poured it on me." Victoria laughed. "And now you're calling me a liar." She turned to the guests. "This maid has been disrespectful since the moment she arrived." No one spoke. Then Victoria picked up a leather riding crop that had been placed beside a decorative horse saddle. She slowly raised it. "I think it's time someone taught her some manners." Just as the whip sliced through the air, the massive front doors opened. A deep voice echoed across the silent ballroom. "Down." Ethan Hawthorne had returned. The ballroom fell silent. Ethan Hawthorne walked through the doors, his expression hard as stone. His eyes swept across the room until they stopped on Emily, standing alone with red wine soaking her uniform. Then he noticed the riding crop in Victoria's hand. "What is going on?" Victoria forced a smile. "My love, it's just a careless maid. She embarrassed me in front of our guests." Ethan looked at Emily. "Is that true?" Before she could answer, Victoria cut in. "She lies." Emily lowered her head. "I don't need to defend myself, sir." That answer caught Ethan off guard. Most people begged for mercy. She didn't. The elderly woman suddenly stood. "No, Mr. Hawthorne." Every eye turned toward her. "The young lady is telling the truth." Victoria's face stiffened. "Mrs. Whitmore, with all due respect, I watched you pour the wine on her." A wave of whispers spread through the ballroom. Victoria laughed nervously. She's mistaken. Whitmore shook her head. My memory is better than yours. For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. Then he turned to Victoria. Apologize. Room gasped. Victoria blinked in disbelief. What? You heard me. I'm your fiancée, and she's an innocent employee. Victoria's smile vanished. Before she could respond, Ethan's chief of security rushed into the ballroom. Mr. Hawthorne, he was out of breath. The confidential merger file is missing. Guests erupted in whispers. The last security camera shows only one person entering your office this afternoon. Ard looked directly at Emily, the maid. Every head turned toward her. Victoria slowly smiled. I told you she couldn't be trusted. Security guard stepped forward. Ethan raised his hand. Nobody touches her. He looked Emily straight in the eyes. Tell me the truth. Emily took a deep breath. I didn't steal your file, but I know who's trying to steal your company. Ballroom went silent. Ethan stared at Emily. What do you mean? Emily slowly reached into her apron. The security guards tensed. Of a weapon. She pulled out a small voice recorder. I found this in your office, she said. I started recording after I heard something that didn't make sense. She pressed play. Victoria's voice echoed through the speakers. If Ethan discovers the missing money, the merger is finished. Then came the man's voice. Don't worry. By tomorrow, everyone will believe the maid stole everything. Room erupted. Victoria's face turned white. That's fake, she shouted. Emily calmly pulled out another item, the missing merger file. Gasps filled the ballroom. I took it, Emily admitted, but only after I realized someone was planning to replace it with forged documents. She handed the file to Ethan. He opened it. The signatures inside were different from the copies his legal team had approved. Someone had altered the agreement. If he had signed it, he would have unknowingly surrendered control of his own company. Ethan slowly closed the file. Then he looked at Victoria. Is this true? Victoria backed away. I can explain. Ethan replied quietly. You can't. He turned to security. Call the police. Guards immediately surrounded Victoria and the man in the black suit. As they were escorted away, every guest stepped aside. The woman who had arrived expecting to become Mrs. Hawthorne left the estate in handcuffs. Ethan faced Emily. Saved my company, he paused. But you still haven't told me who you really are. Emily removed her name tag. My name isn't Emily Brooks. She looked him in the eyes. Evelyn Carter. Daughter of Arthur Carter. Ethan's expression changed instantly. My father's closest friend. She nodded. My father promised yours that if anything ever happened, our family would protect yours. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan extended his hand. Thank you, not for saving my business, he smiled, but for reminding me that character is worth more than appearances. Guests applauded as Evelyn shook his hand. The maid everyone had looked down on had become the hero no one saw coming. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more emotional stories filled with shocking twists and powerful life lessons. And tell me in the comments, at what moment did you realize Evelyn wasn't an ordinary maid? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.